Well, you almost have to wonder, did the Calgary Roughnecks still want me to be a season ticket holder, but not actually go to the game? This team definitely has been a little hard to figure out this season. You know what I mean, as it's time for another episode of... Hi there, it's Brett Hornby here, and welcome back to another episode of my Calgary Roughnecks this month. This will be season number 3, and now we're up to episode number 4, as I'll recap how February 2022 went. For the Calgary Roughnecks, I'm going to say they were definitely a little more busier in February than they were in January, as they played 4 games this month as opposed to 1 any last month. And I would say they're still got some work to do to figuring themselves out and just where they sit in the standings. So before I bring up my notes and touch upon what I mean about, I wonder if they still want me to be a season ticket holder and not go to the game. But if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, home of the Flames, Hippin' Roughnecks, and Stampeders, I mostly do talk Calgary sports on each channel or recap games and stories and that. But I also do a variety of non-sports content. Its keywords here is one if at time, like in-person vlogs, attempt to comedy. I also do share my experience sitting on the road or exploring, and I've done some vlogging on the go. So if that all sounds like be interested to watch, do follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey. You know what you do, just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I also have my other social media links down in the description below. So let's bring up the notes and let's go over how February went for the the Calgary Roughnecks. Definitely had a couple of divisional rivalry games, and they got to see the newest team, the Panther City, across for the first time in this month. So Game 5, let's go back to Saturday, February the 5th, as the Calgary Roughnecks had a first of back-to-back against the Colorado Mammoth. First game was on the road at the Ball Arena. That'll be a 7 p.m. ball drop. So how did things go between the Calgary Roughnecks and the Colorado Mammoth in Colorado? Well, first Colorado got off to the board right away as they scored the first 2 goals. First it was Wardo for Colorado on a power play, and Robertson on goal after. The Wardo goal happened at 2:20 in the first quarter, and the Robertson goal happened in 3:29. So Colorado had an early 2-0 lead at this point in the game. Not a good start for the Calgary Roughnecks. However, it was Jesse King who did score the first goal for the Calgary Roughnecks. Been our leading scorer so far this season. This was at the 5:46-minute mark to make it 2-1 for Colorado at that point in the game. However, it was more scoring for the Colorado Mammoth, as at the 9:47-minute mark of the first quarter, Zach Williams, who got the Colorado back up by 2 with a 3-1 lead. However, Calgary got a power play goal of their own at 13:03, as it was Zach Haywires who scored for Calgary to make it 3-2 for Colorado at that point. However, there was a couple more goals late in the quarter for the Colorado Mammoth, as it was Robertson again who scored at the 13:26-minute mark to make it 4-2, and then it was McLaughlin who got the last goal of the first quarter for Colorado at 13:59. So after the first quarter, the Calgary Roughnecks were down 5-2 against the Colorado Mammoth. So not after a good start. That seems to have been always the case with the Calgary Roughnecks this season, as they always seem to have one bad quarter and get behind, or they get up and then they have a bad quarter and sinks them. Well, that frustration continues for the Calgary Roughnecks, because in the second quarter, actually the Calgary Roughnecks, got back in the game and provided some hope. First, it was Dan Taylor who scored 31 seconds in the second quarter to make it 5-3 for Colorado, and then Dan Taylor scored again at 2:04 of the second quarter. So now suddenly it's a game for Colorado. And then it was Hayden Dixon who actually tied it up for Calgary at 2:52. So Calgary had 3 quick goals to start off the second quarter. So now this thing is tied up at 5-5. And actually the Calgary Roughnecks had a lead, as it was Jesse King who scored at the 6:57 minute mark. So now Calgary took a 6-5 lead. And then Calgary actually had a 2-goal lead at one point. It was Carter McKenzie who scored at 8:36 to make it 7-5. However, Colorado did actually get at least 1 goal in the second quarter. It was Sullivan at the 14:22 minute mark just before halftime. So now it was 7-6 for Calgary at halftime. So after a flat first quarter for the Calgary Roughnecks, they came back in the second quarter to be up 7-6 at halftime. So how did things go in the second half going into the third quarter? Well, going into the third quarter, Colorado's definitely showed their might again and put the disappointment back in the Calgary Roughnecks. First, it was Kinnear who got the first goal for Colorado in the third quarter. This one at the 1:29 minute mark to make it a 7-7 game. However, Kyle Waters did score 2 goals of his own later in the third quarter. First one at 14:16 and the second one at 5:43. Now Calgary had a 9-7 lead at that point in the third quarter, and actually Calgary made it 10-7 fairly in the midway point of the third quarter, as it was Zach Haywars who scored at the 6:55 minute mark. So Calgary was up 10-7. However, the Colorado Mammoth had their things go their way in the second half of the third quarter, as you had Robertson had 2 goals at the 9:27, 8:27, and 9:06 to make it 10-9 for Calgary at that point in the third quarter. And then Colorado ties it up at 9:34 as Cabuto made it 10-10 at 9:34. And then Colorado scored 2 more goals in the third period. It was McLaughlin and Robertson. So McLaughlin scored at 11:42 and Robertson at 13:29. So Colorado had a 12-10 lead after the third quarter. And then the fourth quarter, it was fairly light in scoring, but Colorado was able to add 2 more goals. It was Robertson who scored 57 seconds in for Colorado to make it 13-10. And then the last goal of the game did not come until 10-19, as it was Kinnear who scored for Colorado to make it 14-10. And that was it, as the Calgary Roughnecks lost this one 14-10 in the Colorado to start off February. And it's just frustrating how this has been like the case with the Calgary Roughnecks all season, is that they had some good patches in this one, but they weren't able to win this one. So I mean, the game leaders, Carter Waters had 2 goals for the Calgary Roughnecks. However, it was Connor Robinson who had 6 goals for the Colorado Mammoth, and then as Dan Taylor had 4 assists for Calgary, while it was Ryan Lee who had 9 assists for the Colorado Mammoth. Loose balls, Jesse King had 10 for Calgary, while Robert Hope had 12 for Colorado. And then caused turnovers, Zach Currier had 2 for Calgary, while it was Robert Hope who had 3 for Colorado. And then when it comes to the shots in the game, actually Calgary outshot Colorado 52-26 in this one. But when it comes to the goaltending story of this game, it was Christian Del Bianco who made 32 saves for Calgary, while it was Dylan Ward who made 42 saves for the Colorado Mammoth. So definitely was a balanced game for the Colorado Mammoth for this one to start off February. So that was game number 5 in Colorado. So the next game, this will be game 6. This happened on Friday, February the 11th, as the Calgary Roughnecks were back at home. They were taking on the Colorado Mammoth. This game was a 7 p.m. ball drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. It was rescheduled from Saturday, February 12th, so they moved it up a night from all the games being rescheduled with all the postponements in that, including the Calgary Flames. Actually, this was the game that I personally missed. I just was too busy and I was just feeling out of it for a Friday night, so I definitely missed this game for the Calgary Roughnecks. Well, of course, things looked a little better on the game that I missed, right? Well, let's start off how the scoring worked. Well, the Calgary Roughnecks actually did start off on a good note, as in the first quarter it was Hayden Dixon who opened up the scoring to make it 1-0. Let's say 50 seconds in. And then Calgary made it 2-0 as it was Kyle Waters at 2:53. So we had a 2-0 lead for Calgary fairly early in this game. However, the Colorado Mammoth showed their might once again as they got their first goal at 6:43 of the first quarter. It was Lee made it 2-1, and then McLaughlin tied it up on a power play for Colorado at 10:57 to make it 2-2, and then the last goal of the first quarter came by McLaughlin on the power play again, but this time at 14:36, I meant to say. So Colorado had a 3-2 lead after the first quarter, so still was a closer game, but Calgary had a good start, but Colorado eventually came back. So 3-2 Colorado going into the second quarter. So going into the second quarter, well, Calgary did tie it up within the first minute. It was Zach Haywires who scored 52 seconds in to make it a 3-3 game at that point. However, it was Digby who got Colorado back in the lead at 1:19, so it was 4-3 for Colorado at that point. However, Jesse King did get a power play goal to make it 4-4 at 3:17 of the second quarter. And then it was Robinson that got the Colorado Mammoth back up by 1 at 4:53 to make it 5-4 for Colorado. And then it wasn't until the 8:54 minute mark of the second quarter it was McLaughlin who scored for Colorado to give them up by 2 goals at 6-4. That was at 8:54, and then the last goal of the second quarter for halftime went to the Calgary Roughnecks, as it was Tanner Cook who scored at the 10:48 minute mark to make it 6-5 for Colorado, and that's how things stood at halftime with Colorado up 6-5. Then going into the third quarter, well, it was Lee who scored first for Colorado, but that goal did not come until 4:44 of the third quarter. So Colorado still took a 2-goal lead at 7-5. However, the Calgary Roughnecks, they were a little stingy in this one and able to get a couple more goals of them home in the third quarter. First, it was Tyler Pace who got Calgary within 1 to make it 7-6 Colorado at 6:32. And then Zach Currier scored late in the third quarter to make it a 7-7 game going in the fourth quarter. This happened at 13:54, so it was a 7-7 game going in the third quarter. So how did things go in the fourth quarter? Well, Jesse King did score for the Calgary Roughnecks. However, that goal did not come until 9:28. So for half of the first quarter, everybody was on edge with the game tied at 7. So Calgary took an 8-7 lead at that point. And then in the empty net, it was Zach Currier who put it away at 14:26. So the Calgary Roughnecks, the game, of course, that I missed, they won 9-7. So that's their first Calgary home win of the season. That's what I meant at the beginning. Do you still want me to have tickets but not go to the game? Because Calgary, of course, they won that game. It was definitely a tight defensive matchup, usually between the goaltending matchup with Christian Del Bianco and Dylan Ward, that usually you get a low-scoring game. And this definitely proved to be the case. And then when it comes to shots and goal, well, Calgary did outshoot the Colorado Mammoth again in this game, but it was 49-42 in this one. So the game leaders was Eli McLaughlin, who had 3 goals for the Colorado Mammoth, led the way. Zach Currier had two goals himself. And then assist, it was Tyler Digby, who got 3 for Colorado. Over Jesse King had 4 for Calgary. And then when it comes to loose balls, it was Connor Robertson who had 11 for Colorado. Well, 14 went to Zach Currier for Calgary. Caused turnovers, it was John Lynch who had 2 for Colorado, while it was Zach Currier who had 5 for Calgary, so he definitely had a better game in his specialty. And when it comes to the goaltending story, well, Dylan Ward made 40 saves for Colorado, while Christian Del Bianco made 35 saves for Calgary. So it was definitely pleasantly surprised to see the Calgary Roughnecks win this one. However, just disappointing that it was the game that I missed. So that was game number 6. Of course, that was a Valentine's party, but that was not why I missed it. It was a Friday night, I was a little out of it, and the fact that I was busy into that weekend as well. That's why I decided to stay home for that one. So that was Game 6. So Game 7, this happened on Friday, February the 18th, as the Calgary Roughnecks were still back at home. This time hosting the Vancouver Warriors. This was an 8 p.m. ball drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. This game was rescheduled. It was originally scheduled on Saturday, January 22nd, and I went to that game. So how did things go to the game that I actually went to? And of course, they had the Calgary Stampeders at that game, and so of course I was there as well. Well, it's just got me wondering about the attending the game, being a season ticket holder. Well, actually, this one started off well for the Calgary Roughnecks. In the first quarter, first it was Curtis Superman Dixon who scored the first goal of the game at 1:28 to make it 1-0 for Calgary, and then Tyler Pace scored the second goal of the first quarter to make it 2-0 for Calgary. This was at 5:36. So it was 2-0 for Calgary at that point of the first quarter. However, Vancouver, they scored 5 straight of their own to wrap up the first quarter. First it was Logan Schuss who got the first goal for Vancouver at exactly 6 minutes in. And then it was Kyle Bay who got the next goal for Vancouver at 6:39 to make it a 2-2 game. And then Logan Schuss scored a power play goal at 9:07 of the first quarter, third straight goal to make it 3-2. And then Stewart scored at 9:18 to make it 4-2 for Vancouver at that point. And then Kurt Malosky pulled a little bit of a Mike Keane. He pulled Chris Del Bianco in net until I put him back in like a minute later. So that was interesting. And then it was Charles Matties who got the last goal for Vancouver in the first quarter. This was at 13:20 to make it 5-2 for Vancouver. So Vancouver, after Calgary getting the first 2 goals in the first 5 minutes, they took over the last 10 minutes of the first quarter to make it 5-2, so things were not looking good. However, in the second quarter, I think Calgary Roughnecks, they keep teasing the fans again. They got back in it. Well, Jesse King scored 30 seconds in to make it 5-3 for Vancouver at that point. And then Curtis Superman Dixon got his second goal of the game. This will be at 3:24 to make it 5-4 for Vancouver at that point. And then Calgary actually tied the game up at 5-5. So Calgary started the second quarter scoring 3 straight goals in their home. Zach Hayworth at 5:03 to make it 5-5. That was Killen for Vancouver on a power play that scored at 6:59 to give him a lead at 6-5. However, Tanner Cook did tie it up for Calgary at 10:21 to make it 6-6. However, Bay for Vancouver on a power play scored at 12:08 to make it 7-6 for Vancouver, and that was the last goal of the second quarter for halftime. So Vancouver took the 7-6 lead at this point, proving that I think this is going to be anyone's game going into the second half. So after the Calgary Stampede Chopin performed at halftime, going into the third quarter, this definitely was a back and forth quarter to say. First it was Barker who scored for the Warriors, but that did not come until the 8:20 mark of the third quarter. So it was 7-6 for half of the third quarter. No goals, there were chances. So Barker made it 8-6 at 8:20. And then Curtis Superman Dixon scored 20 seconds later at 8:40 to make it 8-7 at that point. 8-7 for Vancouver at 8:40. And then the next goal did not come until 12:05. That was Bay who got the goal for Vancouver to make it 9-7. However, the Calgary Roughnecks, they actually wrapped up the third quarter with 2 late goals themselves. Zach Hayworth at 12:51 to make it 9-8 for Vancouver, and then Calgary tied it up at 9 apiece. Zach Curry at 14:25, so we had a 9-9 game. Going into the fourth quarter. Now going into the fourth quarter, first it was Killen who scored for Vancouver at 5:04 to make it 10-9 for Vancouver. However, Calgary answered back a minute and a half later. It was Curtis Superman Dixon who scored at 9:27 to make it a 10-10 game. And then it stayed 10-10 going into the final few minutes of the fourth quarter. However, it was Riley Lowen who did score the dagger for the Vancouver Warriors at 12:48 to make it 11-10. However, Calgary was not able to find the equalizer or be able to get anything done afterwards. So ultimately, the Vancouver Warriors, they won a tight one and a close one with the Calgary Roughnecks, 11 to 10. So it was definitely a tough loss to be at. I just felt Calgary had some efforts here and there. I'm going to still say it was that first quarter after the 10-minute mark, or the 5-minute mark in a 10-minute stretch, that sunk Calgary in this one when I was taking this game in. And of course, Vancouver had 3 power play goals. I also mentioned that in that first quarter, I did see Calgary score. They had a couple posts as well, so that game could have gone the other way. And then I also remember Vancouver in the game as well. They had 3 goals waved off because of in the crease, so they were getting a couple game of inches that this could have been a different game, I should say. So when it comes to the shots and goal, well, Calgary outshot Vancouver 51 to 48. It was a close game. There was a couple of close calls either way, but it was still tough to take when you're on the wrong side of it. So when it comes to the game leaders for goals, well, it was Keegan Ball, who had 3 goals for Vancouver, while Curtis Superman-Dixon, he actually had 4 goals. This one for Calgary, assist. Keegan Ball had 3 assists for Vancouver, while Dan Taylor had 4 for Calgary. Loose ball, so it was Reed Ballring, who had 10 for Vancouver, while Zach Curry had 10 for Calgary. Caused turnovers, it was Owen Barker, who had 4 for Vancouver, while Zach Curry had 5 for Calgary. So then when it comes to the goaltending story of this game, it was Steve Fryer, who had 41 for Vancouver, while Christian Del Bianco had 37 for Calgary. So that was game number 7, as the Calgary Roughnecks lost a tough one back in the Roughhouse. So they split the Roughhouse 1-1, and they're 1-2 in February at this point. So game 8, this was a quick turnaround. This happened on Sunday, February the 20th, as the Calgary Roughnecks went back on the road, as they went to Fort Worth to take on the Panther City team. First time the Calgary Roughnecks facing the new team from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. This was a 3 p.m. ball drop at the Dickies Arena. So did the Calgary Roughnecks at least finish 500 in February with a 2-2 record? Well, how this game started off, first for Calgary, or Panther City definitely had their way right away in this one, as they scored the first 3 goals of the game within the first couple minutes. It was Milligan who scored for Panther City 42 seconds in, and then it was Caputo at the 1:34-minute mark to make it 2-0 Panther City. And then at 2:07 it was Thompson who made it 3-0 for Panther City. So Panther City had an early 3-0 lead in this game at home against Calgary. However, the Calgary Roughnecks, they did score 2 quick goals in themselves. First, Calgary goal came at 3:01, as it was Zach Curry who scored to make it 3-1 for Panther City. And then it was Kyle Waters at 3:34, made it 3-2 for Calgary, so at least Calgary fought back right away. And then it wasn't until the 9-minute mark of the first quarter that Calgary tied it up. They had a power play goal, as it was Tyler Pace scored to make it 3-3. So Calgary at least answered back later in the first quarter, and then actually Tyler Pace scored again at 11:13 to get their first lead of the game to make it 4-3 for Calgary. And then the last goal of the first quarter, I should say, goes to Hayden Dixon. He had a power play goal at 13:39 to make it 5-3 for Calgary, and Calgary actually led 5-3 after allowing the first 3 goals in the first 2 minutes of the game. So Calgary was up 5-3 at Panther City. So going into the second quarter, though, there was another strike back from Panther City. However, first Jesse King scored for Calgary 26 seconds into the second quarter to make it 6-3 for Calgary. However, Dodds scored for the Panther City on a power play at 2:49 to make it 6-4. And then Burns at 3:03 made it 6-5. And then Fairhall at the 7-minute mark of the second quarter on a power play tied up the game at 6-6. And then Panther City scored another couple of goals to get up by 2. First, it was Thompson at 9:58 to make it 7-6. And then William Malcolm at 11:53 made it 8-6 for Panther City. So Panther City had an 8-6 lead at that point in the second quarter. However, Tyler Burton actually did score for Calgary with literally 1 second left before halftime at 14:59 to make it 8-7. So it was 8-7 Panther City at halftime. So definitely was going to be interesting to see what are we going to have in the second half, because it looked like so far both teams, when they get on a goal streak, they get on a goal streak. Well, now going into the third quarter, it was Dan Taylor who scored the first goal at 1:50 to tie up the game at 8-8. And then Zach Hayward's had a power play goal at 3:44 to put Calgary back up 9-8 at that point in the third quarter. However, it was Milligan who scored at the 5:28-minute mark of the third quarter to tie up the game for Panther City at 9 apiece. However, Tanner Cook put Calgary back up 10-9 at 8:57. However, Caputo scored on the power play at 10:42 to tie up the game at 10-10 for Panther City, and that's how things stood going into the fourth quarter with a 10-10 game. So now in the fourth quarter, Tyler Pace scored 28 seconds in the fourth quarter to make it 11-10 for Calgary at that point. However, Grannon tied it up for Panther City at 1:14 to make it 1-1, or 11-11 I should say. And then Howdy Metsukoza scored for Calgary at the 2:56-minute mark for his first goal of the season to make it 12-11 for Calgary. Then at the 50-minute mark, Calgary took a 2-goal lead as it was Zach Hayward. So Calgary led 13-11 at that point, and then it was Milligan who got the power play goal for Panther City at 7:42 to make it 13-12 for Calgary at that point. And actually, that's how that game stood, as both sides weren't able to score a goal in the second half of the first quarter. So ultimately, Calgary's first ever trip to Panther City was a success as they won 13-12. So ultimately, they did split February with a 2-2 record. So who led the way for the game for both sides? Well, Tyler Pace did score to make it 3 goals for Calgary. Well, it was Cam Milligan who had 3 goals for Panther City. When it comes to the assists, it was Jesse King who had 6 for Calgary. Well, it was Patrick Dodds who had 5 for Panther City. Loose balls, Zach Currier actually had 21 for Calgary. Well, it was Liam Burns who had 11 for Panther City. Cause turnovers, it was Zach Currier who had 5 for Calgary. Well, it was 3 for Liam Burns. And then when it comes to the shots on goal, Calgary had a very slight edge in shots, outshooting Panther City 51-50. So when it comes to the goaltending story of this game, Christian Del Bianco made 38 saves for Calgary. Well, it was Nick DeMaud who made 38 saves for Panther City. So where did the Calgary Roughnecks stand after February, after they've played 8 games? So now if we get to the stats and standing story of the show, well, let's start off in the East Conference first. Well, leading the way right now is the Buffalo Bandits. They're 8-1 in the East for first place, and then the second place is the Halifax Thunderbirds at 7-1. Then the Toronto Rockets third at 6-4, and then fourth place is the Albany Five Rolls. They're 5-6. The Philadelphia Wings are also 5-6 for fifth place. Georgia Swarm are sixth place at 4-6, and then seventh place the Rochester Nighthawks are 3-6. And then last place is New York Riptide. They were 2-7. So now go to the West. Well, the San Diego Seals lead the way at 6-2. The second place is the Colorado Mammoth. They are 6-3. While the Vancouver Warriors are 5-4. And then in fourth place is our Calgary Roughnecks. They're now 3-5. While the Saskatchewan Rush, they're 3-6 for fifth place. And then sixth place is the Panther City team that are 2-8. And I think the top 4 make the playoffs in each division. And I think crossover does also play a role. So right now it looks like the East is a much stronger division or conference than the West at that point. So that is the quick standings for it, looking around the league. So now when it comes to the Calgary Roughnecks, well, Jesse King is the leading point getter in 8 games. He has 10 goals and 35 assists for 45 points. And then Curtis Dixon, he only played in 5 games this season, has 15 goals, 8 assists for 23 points. Tyler Pace is third. He has only played in 5 games. He has 10 goals, 13 assists for 23 points. Dan Taylor is fourth in scoring. He has 7 goals. In 7 games, he has 5 goals, 15 assists for 20 points. Then as around the top 5, Tanner Cook. He's played all 8 games He has 6 goals, 13 assists for 19 points. And then when it comes to the goaltending story for the Calgary Roughnecks, so it's Christian Del Bianco, who is 3-5. He has a goals against average of 12.52 and a save percentage of 741. And he's played all but 53 seconds, which was Landon Kells from that Vancouver game, where I'm going to say Kurt Orlowski did a little bit of a Mike Keenan. And actually, speaking of Mike Keenan, there's a Derek Keenan that's still the coach of the Saskatchewan Rush, and yes, he is related to the hockey coach, Mike Keenan. So interesting that there's all that right there. I think his name is Derek Keenan. I know there's a Keenan that he is related to Mike Keenan, the hockey coach, for the reputation of being Captain Hook. But I think it was just a quick strategy at that time. So that was the quick stats and standings. So now if we look ahead to the next month for the Calgary Roughnecks, they're definitely going to have another jam-packed schedule, as they have 4 games, but they're going to have a busy stretch in the middle of the month, at least at home. So Game 9, as we now get into the second half of the season, keep in mind that they have 4 games in March, and then they got 6 in April, so that's going to be a busier episode. Well, Game 9, this will be on Friday, March the 4th, as the Calgary Roughnecks will be on the road. They'll be taking on the San Diego Seals. That'll be a 8 p.m. ball drop at the Pechanga Arena. And then Game 10, the Calgary Roughnecks will be back at home on Thursday, March the 17th. This will be the St. Patrick's Day party. The Calgary Roughnecks will be hosting the Saskatchewan Rush. That will be a 7 p.m. ball drop at the Scotiabank Saddledome. And then Game 11, the Calgary Roughnecks play 2 days later, back at home, as the Calgary Roughnecks will be hosting the Panther City team. First look at them live in Calgary. That will be a 7 p.m. ball drop then. And then Game 12 to wrap up March. This will be on Saturday, March the 26th, as the Calgary Roughnecks will be going to Saskatchewan to take on the Saskatchewan Rush. That will be a 7:30 ball drop at the SaskTel Center. So looking at the schedule and the standings, this should be a more favorable schedule, I would say, but we would have to still have the rivalry game with Saskatchewan and Panther City. There's going to be that challenge with San Diego being the divisional leader, but it still seems like been the theme with the Calgary Roughnecks this season is that they've just been inconsistent, where they look good at stretches and look bad at the same time in the same game. But there's definitely still been a lot of turnover from the last couple of years, or last 3 years, if you look back to the team that won in 2019. So that is my Calgary Roughnecks this month for February. So it was definitely a little more to talk about with 4 games. Ultimately, they split February with a 2-2 record, but they still got some work to do, being 3-5 right now in the West. But as I mentioned, the second half of the season is going to be much busier, with 4 games in March and 6 in April. So yeah, there'll be a few more teams to go to the Rough House, as you should say. So anyways, like I say, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans' journey, home of the Flames, Haven, Roughnecks, and Stampeders, and mostly do talk Calgary sports on my YouTube channel, or recap games and stories, like this for example. But I also do have a variety of non-sports content. When I've had time, I haven't made any new videos in terms of personal vlogs. Attempt to comedy, and also do share my experience on the road. We're at a sport event, and I've done some vlogging ago, which I plan to do a little more of that once you get into the later months of the year. So if that all sounds like it'd be interesting to watch, to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey, you know what you do, just make sure you hit like, subscribe. I also have my other social media links down in the description below for other ways you can follow me. Of course, I have my second channel in Brett Hornby Shorts, where I exclusively put my short form content on there, so I appreciate like, subscribe both here on my main channel as well as my second channel. So I'm going to say, go Nets go. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. It's just nice to put some NLL lacrosse up on here, YouTube, and on my channel as well. So thank you.